Another episode of Game of Thrones is in the books, as it were, leaving just a solitary episode left to tie up loose ends. Those who were concerned with the lack of main character deaths during the Battle of Winterfell got a nice package of corpses delivered during the sacking of King's Landing. The Hound, the Mountain, Qyburn, Euron, Cersei, and Jaime. In my opinion, most of these stories had a somewhat satisfying ending. The Hound realized that revenge only leads to your own destruction, and though he managed to kill his brother, one can only deem #Clegane Bowl was a draw. Qyburn died so suddenly and viciously you may have missed it, but ultimately his death came at the hands of his own creation. One could draw parallels to Dr. Victor Frankenstein, but his death in pursuit of the Fiend was much more subdued. However, the Mountain did end up falling from a tower and into fire, and in Mary Shelley's book, Frankenstein's creation vowed to commit suicide through self-immolation. Euron had what can only be considered one of the strangest chance encounters of the series, as he somehow escaped the complete destruction of the Iron Fleet by the fire of Drogon, only to wash ashore just as Jaime Lannister was strolling by on his way to find Cersei. The two fight and Jaime prevails, but Jaime is mortally wounded in the process. Cersei the Lion goes out like a lamb, crushed in the tunnels below the Red Keep surrounded by the skulls of Targaryen dragons with her brother Jaime by her side, just as she had said that they were born together and would die together. And Jaime, dying with his sister, his apparent true love until the end. Something about his particular death rang as very hollow. For Cersei, the idea of her being crushed under the weight of her obsession seems fitting, but it seems like Jaime deserved a better fate. The one thing that this show has taught us about Jaime is that he is a complex man. He is a person that many have deemed to be a man without honor. From the start, he is universally loathed by all but those who are his family members. He pushes a 10-year-old boy out of a high window in the very first episode of the series, simply proclaiming, "The things I do for love." He continues on the path of villainy throughout that season when he kills Winterfell guards and fights Ned Stark in the streets of King's Landing, albeit he is doing so because Catelyn has Tyrion as a prisoner. But Jaime begins to change as a character as the show progresses. After he is captured by Roose Bolton's men and his hand is cut off, Jaime begins to have serious doubts about who he is as a person. He confides in Brienne that the reason he killed Mad King Aerys was because Aerys wanted to burn all of King's Landing to the ground. Realizing that the king had lost his mind, Jaime killed the king's pyromancer and then stabbed Aerys in the back as he tried to get away. Jaime was actually a hero that day, helping to bring the war to an end and saving all the people of King's Landing from a fiery death. But no one would ever see it that way, and Ned Stark, the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms, had judged him on sight as an oathbreaker. Jaime's transformation progresses further. He and Brienne become close friends, and Jaime reflects over the Kingsguard Book of the Brothers. Each Lord Commander of the Kingsguard updates this tome with the deeds of every knight to serve. Jaime notes that his entry is quite short, and most notably it records his deed of killing the Mad King and being pardoned by King Robert. In this scene, one is led to believe that Jaime is beginning to turn over a new leaf, that he is going to add to his entry through heroic deeds. But as he stands alone over the book, he is interrupted by Cersei, who has just told their father Tywin of their incestuous relationship. Eventually, Jaime succumbs to her advances and they have sex on the very table where the book lay. This again puts forth some foreshadowing that Jaime wants to do good, but is held back by his love for his sister. However, sometime after this, the Kingslayer begins to have misgivings about Cersei. After her final betrayal of Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen and the Great Northern Host in their fight against the White Walkers, Jaime decides to leave her and honor his commitment to fight against the forces of the Night King. Here is where we, as the audience, can finally accept Jaime as the flawed hero. Yes, he pushed Bran out a window, and yes, he has sex with his sister, and yes, he is a pompous braggart. But at least he has finally seen reason and is prepared to get redemption for his less than dignified ways. Jaime acts honorably in the North and even finds a new love interest in Brienne. All is well in the world. Until it's not. Jaime fears Cersei will die alone at the hands of Dany and Jon, and so he sojourns back to King's Landing. He says to Brienne, Cersei, is hateful, and so am I, just before he leaves. There is a deep connection between them since they are twins and lovers, but as viewers we were led to believe that he's overcome this obstacle in his life. He and Tyrion shared a moment where the imp congratulates him on finding someone other than their sister to love, and Jaime genuinely seems happy in that moment. Let's just forget it's interrupted by that terrible scene with Bronn. Up until this week's episode, I was convinced that Jaime was driven to King's Landing in order to kill Cersei. She was an anchor around his neck. She had held him back from doing bigger and better things. She had betrayed what little honor the Lannisters had left by not sending her forces north to help against the Walking Dead. She had sent an assassin to kill him and his brother. In my mind, Jaime's arc was heading into a perfect circle. He had been introduced to us as the man that betrayed a king, killing him when the enemy forces were at the gate. But we later found out that his actions were actually quite heroic. Would it not be fitting that Jaime arrives in King's Landing, his sister is under siege, she decides to light all the wildfire in King's Landing and destroy it rather than hand it over to Dany? And in that moment, Jaime approaches. His sister thinks he has returned to her, and Jaime instead stabs her in the back, killing another would-be mass murderer. Perhaps even Jaime is killed after he commits the act by, say, the Mountain. But this time, his deed is understood, and he dies as a hero. Instead, well, he just sort of shows up, hugs Cersei a few times, leads her into a death trap, and the castle falls on them both. There's no redemption in this. Yes, his arc has made a complete circle, right back to the sister-loving blind fool that he was in Season 1. The only difference this time is that there's no unwitting 10-year-old to push off a ledge. We're heading into the final episode now, and if this type of story arc continues to infest the show, we're going to have a mad queen sitting on the Iron Throne, and we'll all be able to sit back and legitimately say that this fighting and intrigue was all for nothing. But some Drogon-sized hints were being dropped in Episode 5 that an assassin we know is probably going to put her cousin on the throne next week. We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching. Oh, and before I go, I'll be doing another live chat at 7 p.m. on May 19th, where we can discuss the previous week's episode and get ourselves good and ready for the series finale. So please join me then. I did have some technical difficulties this week, but I think I have those hammered out now, so I hope to see you then. Thanks again for watching.